Oh, we cut that one real close to the timer. I watched it go to 0. She said her last sentence, and I'm like, we're here. Oh, good to see everyone this morning. I know that we got a few out today. As we were talking just before we started, keep Everett and Joey in your prayers. He did get to go home last night, pretty much. He's coming up to another set of infusions here pretty soon, and we need to pray for him that God would just be with him. This time in the hospital really just wears on him, and he needs as much prayer and support during that time, and because this is not anything normal for Everett. You know, he's never slowed down since I've known him. So, but just keep them in your prayers. Joey has been a trooper, being there by his side, and you know she needs strength. She needs encouragement. I know the ladies were going to try to do something, you know, yesterday. Some of the ladies said we're going to, but then they couldn't because they were still in Lexington, just to try to help her feel better. But just keep them in your prayers, and we'll trust the Lord to do that work. Jess is not here this morning. She was running a little bit of a fever last night. She wasn't feeling good this morning. Zachariah was running a little bit of fever last night. So she got up. She just said, I'm not going. So keep her in your prayers. Just all those that can't be here today, be in prayer for them. Pray God to be with them. And good to see that David's downstairs today, so I don't have to deal with, no, I'm just kidding. David's downstairs, got the kids, so that's a good thing. And huh? Has he? Well, I understand. All right, we're going to be in Luke chapter 22 this morning. Luke 22. This is the life of Christ. We're on the 83rd week. I might as well go to 104.
Yeah, just follow the day.
Huh?
Yeah, just follow the day.
Yeah, because 104 is 2 years. 52 weeks. 104 Sundays. I helped you out there.
You had to help me out there.
52 weeks in a year, one Sunday. And see, it took longer than that because we had some where we were in there we didn't even, I don't feel like I do know we've been on this for a long time, but 2 years doesn't seem.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions and it keeps,
Right, and you know, we're learning, and there's a lot more that I've even skipped over and not even covered. I mean, because you really want to study Christ in depth. I mean, you're talking about, you know, quite a bit of information. And the truth of the matter is, I think it's really important we as Christians understand the life of Christ. You know, because what he did, the things he taught, are all paramount for our own spiritual walks and living for God. So, we're in Luke chapter 22. We'll begin reading here in a minute in verse 66 of Luke 22. And last week we began talking about the trials of Jesus. How many times was he being tried? Do anybody remember? 6 times. How were they divided up? Anybody remember that?
3 religious, 3 government.
All right. Now, Harley, you got that far. Now, can you tell me the order of them?
No. Don't do that.
And we take your cookie back.
No.
Take your cookie back. No, that was extra credit. He still gets his cookie. He would have got 2 cookies had he been. So basically, he was first before Annas, who was the former high priest. Then he was before Caiaphas, who was the high priest at the time. And then he went to the council, before the council of elders, which I'm sure Caiaphas and Annas were in both of those meetings as well. And then prior to that, after that was over with, then he was taken to Pilate. Pilate sent him to Herod. Herod sent him back to Pilate again. Nobody really is able to come to any conclusions. We're going to go over the governmental ones today. But we'll start with the Council of Elders. But we're Luke 22, verses 66 to 71. It says, at daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the teachers of the law, met together. Jesus was led before them. If you are the Messiah, they said, tell us. Jesus answered, if I tell you, you will not believe me. And if I asked you, you would not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. They all asked, are you the Son of God? Are you then the Son of God? He replied, you say that I am. Then they said, why do we need any more testimony? We have heard it from his own lips. I read that, and I've read that before. I was reading it while I was getting ready for this class. I sat there and I looked at that and I thought, that very last sentence, we have heard it from his own lips. He didn't say any of that, anything.
He didn't admit he was.
No.
He said,
You say that I am. Now, he is. The only thing that he did kind of, admit to, or it could be a part of admission, is the Son of Man, but from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. He didn't say, I'm him, although he is. We'll get into why he didn't do that. It didn't here in a little bit. Jesus was tried before Annas. He went to Caiaphas. And then they all conferred with the council of elders. He brought Jesus before the council. And we see here in this that they asked Jesus, if you are the Messiah, tell us. Now, he's smart enough to know that the reason why he's there is because we said last week, basically they're envious of him. He's also smart enough to know that they're trying to trick him up into something to give them reason to, have him killed. He isn't worried about it one way or the other because he knows he's there for a purpose. And when they ask him, they say, if you are the Messiah, tell us. He says, and I'm going to paraphrase it in the way Kelly would say it. You know what? You wouldn't believe me if I told you anyway. So why would I even waste my time telling you? Now, that's how Kelly would say it. Thank God Jesus is not Kelly. But he did say, if I tell you, you wouldn't believe me. That's how I interpret exactly what he just said. Then he goes on and says, but if I ask you, you won't tell me either. Which is kind of seems like, what's his point here? So what he's basically telling them is you never came to the reality of who I was in the first place. And I will be wasting my breath to even ask you because you won't tell me that that's who I am. And they should be the ones that could say, he is. They ought to have already seen that he is the Messiah. But because they were the ones looking for him to come in the first place. They were the teachers. They were the leaders. They were the religious, they would be in our day, the preachers and the evangelists and the, pastors. They would be the ones that are supposed to be leading the people into the truth of God. And they couldn't do it because in reality, they never accepted him for what he was. They thought he was somebody who was trying to one-up them and trying to take over, and he wasn't what they expected because they wanted him to fit in their mold, which, by the way, we do all the time with God. I've said this before, but we do that with God all the time. We try to make God fit in our mold instead of us fitting in the end. And we're backwards. That when we try to fit God into our mold, we're not worshiping the one true God. We're worshiping a false God. It's idolatry. You might not have a little statue that you pray to in the corner, but you're still idolizing something that is not God. And we don't think about that. And here it is, Christ has been before them for 3 years, preaching, teaching with authority. Even they recognized the authority that he had preached with and taught with. And now they're asking, are you the Messiah? Tell us if you are.
And they're the ones that wanted him to come.
Yeah. Tell us if you are. But they weren't being sincere. And he said, if I tell you, you won't believe me. Well, I'm wasting my breath to even tell you that I am. And even if I asked you, which you should be able to know, you ain't going to admit it. But from now on, he said, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. So, in a roundabout way, he was just saying, you deny it. No point in me admitting it, but I'm it.
Yeah.
I'm the one you were supposed to be looking for.
Basically told him that's who he is, but without saying it.
Without saying it. And then really could be the only time in all of his trials that you could find any kind of defense, and it's not even a defense. He never tried to defend himself. They confronted Jesus. Are you the Son of God? Jesus doesn't give them the straightforward answer. He isn't going to defend himself, just as it was prophesied in Isaiah 53. Because in Isaiah 53, verses 7 to 8, you all can turn there if you want, but I'm just going to move right on because of time. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgressions of my people he was punished. Prophecy said that he wasn't going to defend himself. Because you got to keep in mind, remember back whenever he was arrested? And he said, I am he. And what happened? They all fell. They was boom. And then he says, in one instance, he said, I could call angels to deliver me right now. He had that power. He had that ability. They didn't arrest him because it wasn't somebody you found out here on the street that you're forcing to take to jail. It wasn't somebody that you're killing because, you're forcing them to be killed. He gave himself willingly. Because all they had done was call the angels. It'd been over. But that wasn't what God's plan was for us. So he doesn't give them a straightforward answer. He says, to them, nothing that defends himself. And then you go on and you see in verse 70 of Luke chapter 22, it says, then they asked him, are you the Son of God? They still, they've not gotten an answer. They know they've not gotten an answer. And so they're bombarding. It's just like if you go to court, the lawyer's going to keep asking you questions and keep prodding you until they finally get out of you what they're trying to get out of you, if they can get that out of you.
That's daily at my house in Tana.
Daily at your house, Dana? She probably feels
A lot of times they'll keep pressuring you just to get you to say something so they can condemn you for whatever.
and really in this, and really in this case, that's what they're really trying to do. And so verse 7 says, they all asked, are you the Son of God? His response was, you say that I am. That's I'm not saying anything. And then they're like, why do we need any more testimony? What's the point? We've heard it from his own lips. And they send him on out to the council of elders, or on to the not the council of elders, but on to the next step, which is going before Pilate. It prompts them to proceed to the government. Now, anybody remember why they had to go to the government?
Because it wasn't because Pilate's wife did not saw who Jesus truly was and begged him not to do anything to him.
That's not why. And I don't.
Send him on.
They sent him on because anybody?
The Jewish law, under Jewish law, they couldn't crucify him.
Well,
The government had to do it.
Roman law, actually. But you were on track because they were under the Roman authority. They were captive to Rome. So as a result of that, they had to be obedient to the Roman government. And half that cookie goes away after that one. If he'd gotten extra credit, we'd just take this extra credit away from him. But no, what it boils down to is that, the only ones that could do anything beyond arresting him would have been the government. And so they had no authority. So here it is. He goes before Pilate. Now we're in chapter 23, we begin verse 1. It says, Then the whole assembly arose and led him off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king. Now, I'm going to stop there for a minute, but the first part of that says, they began to accuse him, saying, We found this man subverting our nation. You know how twisted that statement really is? Because they were Jews. They did not like the Romans. They didn't like the Roman government. They didn't really want to be a part of the Roman government. They were looking for a Messiah that would deliver them from the Roman government. And now they're trying to appeal to the Roman government to get their way, so they start with a bunch of lies and pretend as though they're the good citizens of Rome. Yes?
Basically, because they're not getting what they want. That's why they're doing this.
Oh, yeah. And they're manipulating at this point. They're trying to manipulate the government to get what they want.
They're
Because
trying to
they
play both
thought
sides.
was that he was going to come deliver them from the Romans, but instead he's come to deliver them from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's not doing what they thought that he was going to do, or what they wanted him to do, they're going to turn against him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give that to Jesus and then turn right around and we do that to Jesus. So here they are. They're like, hey, he's. We found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar. Did he ever oppose payment of taxes to Caesar?
Nope.
What did he do?
He just
He told them
ended
to.
all the.
He told him to give to Caesar what was Caesar's.
Uh-huh. What'd you say?
He told him who.
Yeah, he told him to. In fact, how did he pay that tax? Fish. They took money out of the fish's mouth. I'm not a prosperity preacher by no means. I am not at all a prosperity preacher. I think prosperity preaching is, but there is something to be said about a God who can bring money out of a fish's mouth for a need that you don't have the money for.
Okay, and if people just do that today, I'd send Dave fishing all the time.
Well, maybe that's why, just maybe that's why he hasn't done it for you. You haven't let Dave fish it up. Experiment.
I'm just saying, before I come along, it wasn't happening, and he was going all the time. So.
Yeah, well, true. So, here he is. They said he opposes payment of taxes to Caesar, claims to be the Messiah, a king. Now, notice they threw in a king because they were trying to make a point to the Roman government that he was a threat to the Roman government. Not because they didn't know they could care less about the Messiah. They weren't looking for a Messiah. The Jews were looking for a Messiah. So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You said so." Then Pilate announces to the chief priests and the crowd, this just throws me. He's not made any accusation. He's not made any responses of any positive, agreeing with them one way or the other. He's not defended himself in the least. And Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." So then they insist. But they insisted, it says, he stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. So they keep piling on. Isn't that how it works? Someone's trying to manipulate a situation and they don't get what they want the first time. They keep piling on and piling on and piling on. And then finally they get, it's that straw that breaks the camel's back and then you finally give in. That's why I don't like manipulation or being manipulated. And when I catch you manipulating me, I get really, really upset. And so here it is. He said, he stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. And listen, before he even came to Judea, he started in Galilee and has come all the way here. On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was Galilean. And when he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at the time. Now, Herod, apparently parts of that area were governed by different ones that the Roman government had put in place. My understanding is Herod was actually Jewish, but they had put him in a government type situation where he was, and he was for the Roman government. So they're accusing him before Pilate. He opposes payment of taxes. He says he's a king. And then Pilate's like, "I'm not convinced. I find no wrong in this man." So they keep stirring the pot. And in verse 8, we see that what happens is Pilate realizes that he is Galilean. So I'm not doing anything about this. I'm going to send him to Herod. And I'll let Herod handle this. Well, when Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, verse 8, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. So he'd already heard about Jesus. He knew what was going on, or at least the rumors, And from what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answers. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there vehemently accusing him. And then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him, dressing him in an elegant robe. They sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Now, Pilate and Herod didn't get along. That statement is made. And so they became friends through all of this. Herod was hoping that he'd get to see Jesus perform some miracles. He wanted a sideshow. He questioned him. He put him to the test. But everything he did, Jesus didn't defend himself. He gave him no answers. Because the chief priests, the religious leaders, the crowd stood and accused him, Herod and his soldiers just went along with it. They ridiculed and mocked Jesus. They dressed him in an elegant robe, and then they sent him back to Pilate. We're not doing anything with him either. Honestly, by this point in time, you would think that they'd just give up. But they're not going to. Now, I'm going to take this on a spiritual standpoint. Why do you think they didn't want to give up? Now, the natural answer is, because they had an agenda and they wanted to stop Jesus. But spiritually, what do you think was happening here? Making him look bad. Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, what was going on in the spiritual realm here? What was he doing?
Manipulating.
Mm-hmm.
He was tempting and twisting things and seeing that, he knows all of this.
Mhm.
He knows God, he knows the Bible, he knows what's happening. And he
What better way
wanted to
to
see
have some fun
Jesus
with it?
crucified. He wanted,
What'd you say?
What better way doesn't have some fun with it?
Yeah. Going back. I'm sorry.
he wanted to see Jesus crucified and hurt. He knew what was going to happen.
And, it just shows that the devil doesn't know everything or understand everything, because if he had really understood what was happening, he wouldn't have done it.
Testing the faith,
Huh?
testing the faith.
Yeah. And you see here in this situation, what's happening is that, just like in our lives, that's how the devil works. He sits there and throws these little lies out, trying his best to get us discouraged to give up. And it does test our faith. It does, and he's constantly working at us and gnawing at us. And, you sit back and, it's real easy to get angry at somebody because they've said or done things that really just kind of stick in your craw. But how many times were they motivated by Satan? Listen, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen too many people in the church turn on you. Now, I'm not trying to, because church hurt is things you need to forgive and move forward, because those that have done those kinds of things, they'll pay for what they've done if they don't get right with God. Plain and simple. But in reality, I've seen some things that have gone on that just, it surprises you. People you thought would never, but spiritually they've gotten away from God, or they've allowed Satan to whisper enough to them that they believe lies, and the next thing you know, they attack somebody else. Here Jesus is. He's getting ridiculed, mocked. The whole thing is happening. The devil's orchestrating this behind the scenes. He's trying his best to just get this thing done. What he don't know is he's fallen right into the will of God. Now, real quick, Luke chapter 23, verses 13 to 16. We're going to actually do 13 through 25. The NIV takes verse 17 out because it was kind of a parenthetical type statement, like it was not really necessarily about the text or a part of the text, or so it was seen, but it actually has been included in other gospels besides Luke. So I brought the King James Version verse in 17 so you could have that. So verse 13 begins, Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, you brought me this man as one who was inciting people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence. I've found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. And you can see he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. Because to appease the crowd, he's going to just give him a little bit of a punishment, send him on his merry way, because he finds, and honestly, that was more than he should have done. He should have just let him go.
But to please the crowd.
But to please the crowd.
And the crowd wasn't having it, so.
And then it says, verse 17, that's not in the NIV, says, for of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. The feast, at feast time, he was allowed to let one person go. So he's like, I'll make him the one that I'll let go. But the whole crowd shouted, away with this man. Release Barabbas to us. Barabbas has been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city. This man had actually been in rebellion, had caused a rebellion, and he also was a murderer. It says, and for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again. No. Let this man go. But they kept shouting, crucify him, crucify him. And why do you think the crowd that was there that day at this point actually was all crying out, "Crucify him"? Because the religious leaders were going through the crowd whispering to him.
That is how the devil works.
And that is how you find so much gossip, backbiting, stuff. And you know, my best way to get rid of that is cut those people off. I know it don't sound fun, but sometimes it's the best way to handle it. Oh, yeah, it is kind of, huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I love that piece. Just behave yourself. You were enjoying that way too much. Not really, but. Here it is. They're whispering to the crowd. They're crying out, "Crucify him, crucify him." For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I found him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore I will have him punished and then released." But with loud shouts they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. And he released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they had asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. Now, there is a message in that, because Barabbas deserved death, but Jesus took his place. And that's what he does for us. Now the trials are over. Next week we'll get into the crucifixion. Any questions or comments? All right. God bless.